Okay, everybody's seen the news. You got this veteran nurse who went to this protest or to interrupt ICE from apprehending some illegal immigrants. And he's shot dead. We also see this woman who was in a car. She had done the same thing. She's shot dead. Now, my point being is this happens all the time. It's been going on for centuries. You got different narratives being produced by the media from Republicans and Democrats and independents and all kind of ideas as to what went wrong, what was right, and so forth. Let me just cut to the chase here and just say there's two ways of looking at this scenario. You can see it through the ways or through the eyesight of the world, or you can see it how God sees it. If you're going to look at it from the ways of the world, you're going to look at it from the news, and you're going to look at propaganda, you're going to look at political ideologies, you're going to look at it from agendas that people have that are trying to promote their particular cause, whatever it may be. And I've seen all of it. Now they're saying that this guy that they recently shot, they're posting pictures that he was a veteran nurse, but then he had gotten fired. He'd done all kind of other strange things. Even his father is talking about how he kind of went off the deep ends. You got others that are saying that, you got this elitist, socialist, communist network that is hiring and putting people because of Soros and his son and others that are put him in there to create a division and disunity and to create chaos in our society. And then you have Trump. You got his people that are trying to apprehend all these illegals. And then you have, how did that even happen? With Biden opening up our borders and all these people coming in. And I understand illegals, and I've worked with a lot of them, and some have noble and good causes, but a lot of them do not. And that's the one they're really concerned about. And the ones that came over here from Somalia. And they didn't come to contribute, they come to take because of the welfare state that exists in Minneapolis and Minnesota. Okay? And so you got millions and millions of dollars that has been stolen and misappropriated. So there's different ways of looking at it depending on which side of the coin you're on and who you're hearing. Or you can see it from God's vantage point. That's what I want to do. I want to show you, because you've heard all the media and all that other stuff, and you come to your own opinion, but let me share you how God sees this. And the book that I'm going to use is the book of Proverbs. Because Proverbs is loaded with wisdom literature. It sees life. And it shows how wise people should respond to life scenarios, like the one in Minnesota. Okay, I got a gun. Okay, I got some extra magazines. I think I'm going to go to this protest. And just in case I need it, to shoot who? The ICE agents? What am I doing? And here's the thing that I want you to think about. All of this is premeditated. It's not temptation. It's something they had time to think about. Okay, so you got a lot of stuff going on in this country that is premeditated. But they don't think, and a lot of these naive people, they don't think about the end result or the possible consequences that could happen. I'm sure when that mother of 3, instead of being home caring for her children, decided to go and interrupt ICE operations, she didn't think within that day she's going to lose her life. Neither do I think this guy thought he was going to lose his life. But they put themselves in a precarious situation that allowed Satan to run havoc and create chaos, confusion, and now a lot of misinterpretations. So let me give you God's spin on the thing. In Proverbs chapter 6, verse 16 to 19, God establishes wisdom for things that he specifically hates. I mean, hates. And he says there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Now, you know the word detestable means repulsive, really bad. God doesn't want these things to happen. Okay? And then he's going to list them. One of them is haughty eyes. In other words, that's that proud, arrogant defiance, because that's the first thing Satan had, is look at me. Look at what I can do. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to be a hero and I'm going to establish justice my way. It's that proud arrogance. Little does he realize it's going to cost him his life. Okay? God does not like arrogant people. Okay? Haughty eyes, they're the kind of look down their nose at you. And the second thing is a lying tongue. You can always tell when somebody's lying. The way they shift how they spin the narrative, like what they're doing now with the media, depending on which political side of the spectrum they're on. And they spin lies, their pragmatism out the ears, just showing and telling whatever is necessary in order to achieve their end. God hates lying. There isn't a little lie and a big lie. A lying is giving something or saying something that is not true. You can do that in a lot of ways. By over telling the truth, under telling the truth, or just completely missing the truth. Okay, and we're getting all 3. And by both sides. Don't get me wrong, by Republicans and Democrats. Okay, now, but God hates it. He doesn't like proud people and people that act proud. He doesn't like anybody to lie, whether you lie about your family or friends or co-workers or your political, enemies. Hands that shed innocent blood. The first thing that comes to mind there is abortionists. There's children innocent. And so how they get around it? By calling them a fetus. How did Hitler get around it? By telling them that the Jews were not human. They were animals. He dehumanized people in order to shed innocent blood. Now that's for the innocent, okay? But in this case, you had a lady that was recently arrested, a librarian of all things, that on social media was trying to enlist and recruit people that were terminally ill to go ahead and use their last days on earth as an assassin to shoot Trump and other Republican leaders. Can you imagine the disconnect with reality that she has? Hands that shed innocent blood. Now, it may not have been her hand that pulled the trigger, but I understand what immediate cause is. Okay, where's the origin of all this chaos coming from? Well, of course, we know as Christians it comes from Satan, but who is his biggest advocates? Whether it was Soros, or whether it was the Democratic leaders, was it Biden and his son Hunter, Pelosi, and all those people? Where does this come from, and why do they do that? Now we got this, the governor of Minnesota, Waltz, AOC, and they were trying to bring in a socialist ideology, which they know it only benefits them. It doesn't benefit the people. It makes them a slave. But nevertheless, how is God seeing this? So God hates a haughty look, a proud. He hates a lying tongue. He hates hands that shed innocent blood. He hates a heart that devises wicked. Those are the people that sit back all the time, and in their heart they're scheming. They're creating scenarios that is evil. They don't think it's evil because they're trying to justify it. And so they come up with all these plots and subplots to unravel and to just create chaos among their enemies. And that's a heart that devises evil. Now you have other people in Hollywood that do that. Authors do that, writers. You have especially a lot of politicians that do that. And here's the other thing, and I want you to think about these people that were recently killed. Feet that are quick to rush into evil. Look, I'm not going to take a gun to a protest. Stupid. Why would I put myself in harm's way? That's not wisdom. That's why I always tell people, look, you need to study the book of Proverbs, because Proverbs will give you a lot of wisdom. It'll help you to think through scenarios so that you don't put yourself in harm's way. Should that nurse still be alive today? Absolutely. As she had lived a wise life, so should that guy. But if they start opening their ears to satanic verses and lies and ideology like Marxist Lenin and all that communistic thinking, they're opening themselves up to tremendous harm. Not only that, but they're showing their ignorance, having studied history. There isn't a socialist country anywhere that has been successful. It only prospers the people that are in charge. It does not prosper the people. My dad used to tell me all the time, hey, listen, politicians are pretty smart. You want to have control, simply give the people just a little bit, just to make them dependent on you and rob them of all incentive to go beyond. See, because if you give them just a little bit, they become dependent upon that. They don't want to lose it. But if they give it up and they lost it, now they got to go and make it on their own. What happened to all the Somalians and all these people? And you're giving them all this money and all this stuff. Now all of a sudden you're not going to give it to them anymore. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to rob. They're going to steal. They're going to kill. They're going to rape. They're going to do all these things. Why? Because that's their character. That's their nature. Now, sensible people recognize that. Unsensible people that have this sort of fantasy ideology that we're all, kumbaya, and we're all going to live in this massive universal commune, they think that that's possible. But that's not reality. You know why? Because everybody has a sin nature. So God hates feet that are quick to rush into evil. He also hates a false witness who pours out lies. Listen, by the way, these are all premeditated things. These are not temptations. These are things you think through that you're going to go and do. It's not like all of a sudden you're tempted to look at a girl that's, scantily dressed, and you take that second look and you get yourself in trouble. It's not that kind of thing. This is something that a haughty eyes, lying tongue, this is your character. Running quick. Why do young people do that? Because they think it's exciting. I remember when I was in France and they would have Communist Day, May 5th, where here we celebrate, May 1st, here we celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Over there they call it Communist Day. You couldn't go to town. If you did, you were going to put yourself in danger. But I remember the riots that happened and all the people that got hurt just because they were in the wrong place where they shouldn't have been. Okay? It's no different today. I saw it during the same thing, during the Vietnam War. And all the riots and protests. Remember what happened at Kent State? And then all of a sudden the National Guard starts shooting up all these students. So this is nothing new. We had the same thing with the George Floyd thing. The same thing with the riots in LA, in East LA. You don't go there, okay? And you don't pour out lies about, you're going to go there and thinking it's going to be exciting. And little do you know that, it may steer your heart and get your blood pumping up high, but you may also die there. And then the last thing, a man who stirs up dissension among brothers. I think what Waltz is doing, the mayor of Minneapolis, is a terrible thing. You know what they should do? They should come together with President Trump and figure out a peaceable solution. They need to get these illegals out of the country because they're not here by right. They're here by fraud and deception. They can come back. Like my mom did, legally. But she had to apply for citizenship, as other members of my family. You know, they can come back and then they're okay. But while they're here illegal, they're never going to have real peace. They're never going to have real joy. And they're going to be doing the kind of things that God hates. So there's two ways of seeing this thing in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, and everything that's going on right now. You can see it from a political point of view, the world's point of view, and choose sides. Or you can see it from God's point of view. God hates what's going on. Not just with that incident, but many other incidents around our country. So it's real important, and let me finish with this. You got to develop a biblical worldview and a biblical mindset so that when you look through the lenses of your eyes, you're seeing life and interpreting the way God sees it. Then you can make wise choices that are appropriate for you and your family and your situation. But if you just listen to the propaganda of the media or your friends, or what's the latest news thing, you're going to get taken in. I mean, how else would this woman, this librarian, try to recruit? Come on. People that are on their dying bed. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with that thinking. But that's what happens. You see, the real battle that Satan has with people is in the mind. That's why in Romans 12, 1 and 2, it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You know, unwind that old script that the world gave you and put in God's script. That way you can see the world and what's going on in the world and what's going to happen in the future with wisdom and knowledge and insight, discernment. So I have a lot of that. It frustrates me to see all this. And even people I know, friends of mine, that go along with a lot of this. So don't do that. It's not wise. It's not wise. God hates it. Get back into the book of Proverbs. Look, Proverbs has something like 30, 31 chapters, okay? It's enough to read one chapter a day for a month, and you didn't just repeat it. And you're going to get a lot of wisdom. God's going to show you what to do in particular situations, how to know his will, and how to be in the safest place in the world. And the safest place in the world is in the middle of his will, wherever that may be. Okay, God bless. Continue to pray for those prayer requests that I had. And I'll be back with you soon. Bye-bye.